There's been a murder, and we need you to solve it. Welcome to the TV show with only one question. Who done it? Welcome to Armchair Detectives, the show where these 15 murder mystery enthusiasts will try and solve a deadly crime by the end of today's programme. Our amateur sleuths are placed at the centre of a fictional investigation set in Mortcliffe, a sleepy village with a serious homicide problem. They'll watch the drama play out as Mortcliffe's top police force spring into action. There they are. What a calendar that would be. DI Knight, DC Slater and their scene of crime officer, Simmons. We'll be heading to Mortcliffe shortly, but first, let's meet our armchair detectives. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome back. Only 3 of you play each day. Take your armchairs, please. Eloise, Dipak and Audrey, coming up. What a gentleman. Eloise, welcome.
Hello.
What's going to make you a good armchair detective?
I'm quite a curious person. I always like to know what everyone's up to and what everyone's doing.
Dipak, welcome. What about you? What's going to make you a good armchair detective?
A few years back, I did a kind of management course where we were stuck out in the middle of Wales and we had a 2-day event where we had to go and chase some clues, interrogate people, be interrogated.
There's none of that today.
Yeah.
Audrey, what's going to make you a good armchair detective?
I'm always a bit suspicious of people. If they're a bit too nice, I think, I think I'd slip quite nicely into the role.
Excellent. Well, the armchair detectives who correctly guess the killer will each get their hands on one of these. Our very own golden magnifying glass trophy. Ooh! I'll be trying to solve the crime with you as we go along too. So it's time for round 1, the crime scene in today's story, Patently Murder. Knight and Slater meet Simmons, who tells them all they need to know about today's victim. Notepads at the ready. For the first time today, let's head over to Mortcliffe.
Always wanted to call myself one of those, sir.
You're too young for nostalgia, Slater. Hell's Angels are old enough to be your grandfather. Oh, you're always chipper early in the morning, Simmons. How do you manage it?
Plenty of coffee and no social life.
I can identify with one of those.
It's not the coffee.
Before I get done for bullying in the workplace, Simmons, you better show us the scene.
Yeah, save a DC's life, Simmons.
Don't give up your day job for a future in stand-up, Slater.
I'm the funniest man I know.
Right. Heather Cookham, the secretary of the factory, called for an ambulance at 9 o'clock last night when she discovered this van had its engine running with a pipe that ran from its exhaust into this workshop. David Cotley, the victim, was in the building. He was alive when the medics arrived, but died later at hospital from carbon monoxide poisoning.
Safe to go inside, yeah?
Yeah, it's been thoroughly aired. We've done a prelim search and dust.
Shall we?
The place is a bit of a mess, but there are a few things of interest. We found this letter on one of the desks, as well as some paperwork. Also, this handkerchief with the letters PH on it. We're about to bag this and test its contents. But as it was found near to where David was, we're surmising he was sick in it.
From the carbon monoxide.
That's the current assumption. Oh, this might be of interest. It's full of shredded documents. It was still warm when we arrived, so it looks like it was used just before David died.
Any results on the van?
Obviously, we'll do a full dust, but as it's a company vehicle, it's going to be overflowing with prints.
OK. Let's find out who was here yesterday evening and interview anyone of interest.
Already on it, sir.
Quite the double act.
Well, Simmons says she has no social life. I don't believe that for a second. So that is the initial crime scene. Audrey, let me start with you.
The paper shredder being warm. Obviously, Has the victim shredded some paper he wanted to hide? Or did the killer shred something that he didn't want found?
How does somebody who's trapped and not get out of it, seeing that the gas was coming from the vehicle outside, potentially somebody's in there that can't get out, but yet they might have vomited, which was the victim's vomit, if I heard correctly?
It's got to be planned because it's had to be done at a certain time for no one to be around to save them and stop them. And I want to know who PH is.
Where did you see that?
On the handkerchief.
Handkerchief, yeah.
Well, today we are investigating the death of David Cotley. David was 60. His occupation was inventor. In his personal life, David was divorced and had one son. David and his friends called themselves the Petrolheads, a bunch of car engine enthusiasts. The cause of death was asphyxiation by carbon monoxide poisoning. David was pronounced dead in hospital at 11 p.m. So that's our victim. Any early thoughts on him?
Well, he's an inventor. Could he have invented something that would be relevant financially to somebody else or to himself? And maybe that's why they've destroyed the paperwork.
Interesting. So the suspect list so far is pretty narrow. Heather Cookham, secretary at the Cotley Motor Factory. Although we haven't met Heather yet. She's the one who phoned the police, she's the secretary. Any initial thoughts?
I think the timing for a secretary to work that late, obviously it was time of death was 11 o'clock at night. So...
Do you know, I paid my way through university by being a secretary, Eloise, and I was out that door at 5 o'clock every single night. I'll tell you that for nothing. Well, in each round, you'll get to interrogate a piece of evidence more closely. So here is your first one. The forensic report detailing text messages found on David's phone. One from Simon, Tuesday, 11:30am. Hey, so good to see you today. We will be round tomorrow evening about 9:10ish. See you at PHHQ. And then to David Cotley again from Simon, Wednesday 10:15. Hey Pops, sorry to have kept you hanging around tonight. We're not going to make it after all, something's come up.
Obviously the PH on the hanky could have stood for petrol heads. So that could be a company thing, the hankies, so that could just be a red herring.
Eloise is now desperately disappointed. She was hoping for the old trope of dropping the piece of evidence with the murderer's name.
Would have been really easy, wouldn't it?
What did you say, though, Eloise, about Simon?
It's his son. Well, it could be. He said, hey, Pops, which is obviously...
It could be a... Who's the we? There's...
That's my question, is Simon didn't make it, but did the person he was coming with make it?
Some good thoughts there. But it's time for round 2, last movements. And we'll get to see petrolhead David Cotley the day before his murder. Notepads at the ready. Let's head back to David's workshop.
David.
Oh, heavens up! Don't do that!
Sorry. You went away with the fairies.
The inventive fairies. Oh. Simon, how are you doing, old chap?
I'm sorry about the intrusion. After last week's meeting, you said I could pop round and chat.
Right, yes. Delighted to chat. You're always welcome, Simon. Yeah, pull up a pew.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, get rid of that stuff.
You, get to air the workshop much?
No need, old chap. I can't smell a thing. Hangover from that bad virus I got a few years ago. Well,
how long did the engine coil take to develop?
About 5 years. I came up with a good many different prototypes to try and solve the issue. No, not just me. Tony, your father, of course. To be honest, Tony was the one that came up with the original idea. Simon helped. And I was the one who worked out how to engineer it.
The original petrol heads.
Indeed, named not for our driving skills, but for our collective obsession with machines.
How did it make you rich?
Oh, I patented the idea. And since I had a monopoly on the market, it made me very wealthy.
As an inventor, it's important to understand the patent process.
Well, generally, a patent lasts for 20 years. And you have to renew it every year within that time. You know, I've got one idea here that's very nearly ready to go.
Well, you've always been an inspiration to me, old man. More of a father figure to me than Dad.
Oh, nonsense.
Dad has a business proposal that might interest you. I've played a small part in the thinking. Would you be able to meet him at 10 tomorrow in the evening?
That sounds fine. You're a lot more interested in engineering than Graham.
Well, unfortunately, we don't always inherit our parents' talents. I'm just lucky that I did. Great to chat.
Tony! Hello!
Hello. Hello, David. Si, am I interrupting?
No, not at all. I was just about to leave. Thanks again, David.
Tony, good to see you out and about.
Always good to see you. Thanks for seeing me, David. You know, I fairly rattle around that great big house, you know.
I thought you were going to downsize.
Oh, June won't hear of it.
She loves the grand life, our June, eh?
Well, she helped with the patent, with the coils, so I suppose it's only fair that she can share in its spoils. Which is why I wanted to chat to you about the patent. I was hoping you'd consider changing your mind.
Lots happened in that film, didn't it?
So I worked out who we was.
Yes, who's we?
David said the original petrolheads were Tony, Simon and David, and I presumed Simon was that Simon's dad. So then thought we was Simon and Simon. But then he said Graham, and I don't know who Graham is.
It's almost like we've created a complex mystery for you to solve. Something stuck out for me at the start of that film. Did anyone else spot it?
Oh, he was taking pictures of his own patent. But that was
I did notice that.
That was his redesign. So at some point,
He's
I'm
gone
hoping we
off to
get
this
hold of that camera.
Let's take another look at the suspects' boards. We still haven't met the mysterious Heather Cookham, the secretary at the Cotley Motor Factory, but there are 4 new suspects to add. We've got Simon Delaney, entrepreneur, Tony Harrow, petrolhead member, and June Harrow, who's Tony's wife, who we haven't met yet, and Graham Cotley, who's David's son.
Well, it's Simon's dad. That says Simon Jr.
June and Tony have obviously got some axe to grind about the patent. They were involved, or he said how they were involved in the patent, and they wanted to have a change of mind.
Right. I've given you a piece of evidence already. Now's your chance to pick another one from the following list. Decide as a group which one you fancy. We have a blank envelope found at the crime scene, or the patent agreement of the engine coil, and finally, the forensic report on the van parked outside the workshop.
I don't know why, but I'm drawn to blank envelope.
I'm drawn to the van because the patent agreement, all it's going to say is that it's for 20 years and it's renewable every year.
Do you pick what you want? You've got the casting vote here.
Do you know what? I'm going to go blank envelopes. It's something completely new. We can look at the
That's
van
all
in a
right.
bit.
Let me reveal what the blank envelope says. The envelope is blank and has a first-class stamp on it. Underneath the stamp is a camera memory card that has blueprint images saved on it. There's a handwritten letter found inside the envelope that says, "Let me live. I want to break free. Save me."
You said he was taking photos.
Yeah, so that's him.
So he could have taken the memory stick out the card, hidden it there when he realised he was being gassed.
Yeah.
Thought, what am I going to do? Because the killer's going to maybe search this van, hide it under the stamp, and then shove that in.
So, armchair detectives, it's time now to lock in your prime suspect. Who do you think is most likely to be the killer so far? I need you to write down a name in your detectives' notepads. At home, join in as well. Write down who you think it is. Is it Heather, Simon Jr., Tony, June, or Graham? Write it down now. Time's up. Put your notepads away. Eloise.
Simon Jr.
Simon Jr. And why?
He's asking a lot of the right questions in terms of the murder.
Dipak, who's your prime suspect and why?
I'm going with June.
June?
Yes.
June? We don't even know what June looks like, Dipak.
I don't trust a silhouette.
Audrey?
Simon Jr.
Simon Jr. Why?
He was a bit too nosy. What in the hell has it got to do with him about the patents and how long they run for and et cetera, et cetera? So he's got ulterior motives about the finance behind this patent.
OK, interesting. Well, it's on to round 3 now, the police interviews. Now, you get a lot of information here, so pay attention to everything that's said. It's time to see Knight and Slater zone in on the people close to the victim and pull them in for questioning. Notepads at the ready. It's off to Mortcliffe Police Station.
Ah, Simmons, what do you have for us?
The victim showed no signs of trauma.
What about the van?
It had a petrol engine.
Yeah, is that important?
Well, petrol engines emit more carbon monoxide than diesels. David Cotley died quicker than he would have done in a diesel vehicle.
Any results on prints?
There were no usable prints on the keys. All the fingerprints found around the van were from David Cotley or company workers. And the only prints on the pipe leading to the warehouse were from Heather Cookham.
So, nothing, then?
I'm trying my hardest.
Thank you, Simmons. You were a shining star in the otherwise cold, dark universe. Funny, Slater?
Hilarious, so. Why did you visit David the day before his murder?
Well, to ask him to reconsider keeping a patent active. Money is tight at the moment. We've just done major renovations. Without money from the patent, I'm not quite sure what we're going to do.
We?
Well, my wife, June, and I.
What does your wife do for a living?
Well, she takes care of all the domestic arrangements. June is a great wife and mother, but that's when she's not out spending all my money. Never give a woman a credit card, she just goes mad with it.
Do you have any idea who stands to inherit David's patents?
No, I don't. David, Simon, June, and I all benefited.
What were you doing last night?
Well, I was at home, and June was at Bridge Club.
Why did you visit David the day before his murder?
I didn't.
Then why did he receive a text message saying you were visiting him?
That was my son, Simon Jr. They've been close since Simon was a kid. He asked David if he would be able to meet us at 10 that evening. If only we hadn't, maybe he'd still be alive.
Odd time for a business meeting.
Yeah, I had a busy day. Besides, we often caught up with one another in the evening.
And what did you want to meet David about?
I wanted to buy a patent off him.
What is it that you do?
I also construct engine parts.
So you and David are partners?
Well, no. Rivals would be more accurate. Don't get me wrong, David was a brilliant man. He just wasn't the only one around. I once patented a more modern idea than his at one point.
Do you have any idea who stands to inherit the financial proceeds of David's patents?
David loved Graham. I'd be surprised if he didn't pass on all his patents to his only son.
David's patents?
David loved Graham. I'd be surprised if he didn't pass on all his patents to his only son.
What were you up to last night?
I was at home all evening.
With your son?
No. My son was at a friend's house.
Which friend?
I have no idea. He's a grown man. You'd have to ask him.
I noticed that he had a pocket hanky.
You're still thinking about that hanky, aren't you? With PH on it.
Well, he was an original PH member, so...
You're quite confrontational there, Eloise. I'm just trying to help you. No. Audrey, what are you thinking?
Simon Senior, right, strange time to have a meeting, 10 o'clock at night.
It is.
His son was supposed to go with him, but didn't go. He went with friends, so he hasn't got an alibi. So if the son's not got an alibi, there's nobody to alibi the father.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot. Let's take a look at the suspects. We're still waiting to meet the mysterious Heather Cookham. Who is she? And we've got a new one, Simon Delaney Sr., who's a Petrolhead member, which means previously we met Simon Delaney Jr., the inventor, along with Tony Harrow, Petrolhead member, June Harrow, Tony's wife, who we still haven't met, and Graham Cotley, David's son, who we've also not met. Where is your finger of suspicion pointing now, Dipak?
I'm sticking with June.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audrey?
I'm joint between the both Simon Delaney's. There's something a bit iffy about the pair of them.
Eloise?
For some reason, Tony saying June was at Bridge Club at the time of the murder isn't sitting well.
Once again, you can pick a piece of evidence, and we've added a new one to the list. We now have the patent agreement of the engine coil, the forensics report on the van parked outside the workshop, or this new piece of evidence, the forensics report on the pipe found at the workshop.
Maybe the patent agreement gives
I
us
think the
something.
patent agreement, because
there might be notes on it.
I think the patent agreement holds a lot of clues to what's gone on here.
If we're looking for a motive, I'd say
think
the
the
patient agreement.
Yeah, but I definitely think there's something more on that pipe as well, because it's the only unique piece of evidence that's not contaminated with the van with lots of other people using it.
Should we take the patent first, and then the next time next time we can go for the pipe?
Yeah, technically that's the murder weapon in some way if they pumped it in there.
But then I think the motive of the murder is more in the patent agreement. We'll go for the pipe next, shall
Let's
we?
go motive then.
I feel like Deepak has been slightly steamrollered by Audrey there. So this is David's patent agreement that was found in his workshop. There's 5 years left on the agreement, with Tony and Simon both receiving 15% total profit of the coil. Cotley, the victim, gets 70% of the profits.
I think Cotley, he owns 70% of it. The other 30%, he's gifted Simon Delaney Sr. and Tony Harrow. They don't actually own it, because otherwise they'd have more than a 50%.
I don't think there's any doubt about the ownership. He's written into the contract that these people will get a percentage share.
Yeah, but there's only 5 years left of the contract.
Yeah, so Tony would benefit from it being reapplied and extended, and Simon would benefit from it not being extended because he would get to nick that engine part.
Armchair detectives, I need you to write down who your prime suspect is now. Join in at home. Have you changed your mind? OK, let's see who you've picked. Have you changed your mind or stuck with the same person? Eloise, last time your prime suspect was Simon Jr. Have you changed your mind?
I have.
Who is it this time?
Graham.
Graham. Why have you picked someone we've not met?
That's the reason.
Because you've not met.
I don't know him, so...
I love it, Eloise. Dipak, last time you plumped for June.
Yes.
Who we also hadn't met.
Yep.
Who have you gone for this time?
I've completely flipped now.
Yeah?
Simon Sr.
Simon Sr. Yeah. Why?
So I'm just going on the evidence that we've got. Who was most going to benefit from this patent, changing hands or defaulting?
Audrey, last time you went for...
Simon Jr.
Simon Jr.
I'm sticking with Simon Jr.
Oh, really?
Yes.
OK.
There's just something not right about him. He's a bit too slippery.
Slippery. Well, now it's time for round 4, where we dig a bit deeper. It's 1 week before David Cotley's death, and let's head back to Mortcliffe.
Oh, excellent. Nectar of the gods.
You really need to clear out in here.
Oh, nonsense. This workshop is self-cleaning.
Well, let me open a window for some fresh air. Oh, wait. The window doesn't work.
Give the man a break, Heather.
I agree with him. This place is a tip.
I'm the only one that works here, so you can leave it exactly the way it is. Thank you very much, Heather. Friends, we have worked together off and on over the years, And ever since the engine timing coil was patented 15 years ago, we have done very nicely for ourselves.
Sorry we're late. Bus delays. Very nice indeed. New perfume, eh?
I wear this every day.
Oh, if you had, I would surely have noticed.
I smell nothing. Which is just as well, because you know that perfume is nothing more than ethanol.
Try not to spoil the moment, Dad.
Right. Anyway, listen, I was just about to say that I have decided that now is the right time for me to retire.
Already?
Indeed. You're a spring chicken.
Retirement's not all it's cut out to be, David.
I'm getting on in years. And I'm able to live comfortably. And what with my latest patent almost ready to be sent off, and the timing coil patent about to expire for the year, it just seems the right time.
And what will happen to the patent?
We're still making £200,000 a year on it. But that's already dropped by half over the last decade. Although there's still 5 years left, I'm going to let the patent drop.
I know. There were lots of looks there, weren't there?
Yes.
What do you think, Deepak?
Mr. and Mrs. Harrow, if he retires or he dies, they lose out because the patent doesn't get renewed. He owns the patent.
Mm-hmm.
The secretary also, if he retires, she's got no job and she needs him to hang around maybe.
So let's take a look at the suspects board. So finally, we can put faces to the names of Heather Cookham, the secretary at the Cotley Motor Factory, and June Harrow, Tony's wife. And we've also, of course, got Simon Delaney Sr., Simon Delaney Jr., Tony Harrow, and finally as well, Graham Cotley, who's the victim's son. Anything changed for you?
No.
Nope. Eloise? Well, Eloise, you'll be delighted to hear once again it's time to pick your evidence. And there's another new item on the list. So you can either have the forensics report on the van parked outside the workshop, the forensics report on the pipe found at the workshop, and the new item of evidence is the last will and testament of David Cotley. The decision is yours, guys. What do you want to see?
Well, since Eloise and I got our way the last time, we'll let you have your way this time.
Oh my God, I'm going to marry both of you. This sounds amazing.
So, in a beautiful example of consensus, Deepak, you now get your choice and you want to see the forensics on the pipe. The forensic report reveals fingerprints were found on the middle of the pipe and silk fibres found at the ends of the pipe. The fingerprints belong to Heather Cookham. Eloise?
I'm really trying to remember who was wearing a scarf. I don't know if it was Heather and June or just June. Because that's what
The
it's
secretary to me doesn't look like a silk scarf type of lady.
But June with her lavish
June
lifestyle
would have that, yes.
Guys, it's time to pick your prime suspect again. Armchair detectives, write down who your prime suspect is now. Have you changed your mind or stuck with the same person? Eloise, last time you went for Graham Cotley, despite never having seen him. Who have you gone for this time?
June.
Why?
I feel like she's the only one that can afford a silk scarf.
Deepak, last time you went for Simon Sr. Have you stuck with that or have you changed?
I've stuck with Simon Sr.
Because?
Because I haven't got any other evidence to push me either way. I like the whole lavish lifestyle with the silk, the handkerchief. I'm still waiting to put a few key pieces together.
Audrey, last time you went for Simon Jr.
Yes.
Have you changed your mind?
No, I haven't. He's obviously got wind at that meeting that they had before that he had a new patent. So I think he's maybe trying to get his grubby, greasy little paws on it.
Right. Well, we're motoring towards closing this case. It's round 5, the final clues. The detectives go to meet Graham, David's son. So let's have a look and see what happens.
Nice. Feeling the call of the road, are you, Slater?
Something like that.
Thank you.
Is that your bike outside?
Yeah.
Cool.
More of a Stones man myself.
Oh.
Can I see your driving licence, please?
Yeah.
Category A only?
Dad reckoned cars would be obsolete within 20 years, so... take a seat.
Thank you. Sorry to have to ask this, but do you know who benefits from your father's will?
I think I do. The factory and all of Dad's inventions go into a trust or something. He probably wouldn't leave it to me. I know he wanted me to take over the business, but it's not really something I want to do.
Do you know what he was working on? We found a lot of shredded documents.
I wish I'd known, but he was very secretive.
Do you know Simon Delaney?
Dad's known both the Delaneys for years. Simon Delaney would have loved to patent anything Dad developed.
Was there any bad blood between them?
Look, my dad was the sweetest man. I really don't know why anyone would want to kill him. Even though he could be infuriating and eccentric and make bizarre choices sometimes.
What kind of bizarre choices?
The decision to drop his main patent, for example.
That didn't make sense to you?
He'd have made much more money if he'd kept it active.
I didn't know David was around. I assumed he'd gone home at 5 as he usually does.
You stayed late.
I was going on holiday and I wanted to sort out the salaries before I left.
Did you see anyone else or hear anything?
No. It was around 9. I realized I could hear an engine running. That's when I saw the van parked outside the workshop. It struck me as odd, so I went to have a look. That's when I saw the pipe. I yanked the pipe from the workshop door and the van, and then reversed the van from outside the workshop. When I opened the door, David was lying on the floor. The ambulance turned up pretty quickly. I can't believe he's dead.
How long had you known David?
25 years. He was such a generous man. Always. He was going to give me a pay rise once the latest patent had been filed.
Where did you keep the keys to the van?
Above the sun visor.
David thought that was sensible.
We kept them there for years because the van was widely used within the company.
Thank you, Miss Cookham. That'll be all for now.
Well, one thing that was a bit strange, in the note that he left, "Let me live, I want to break free. Save me." Right?
Yes.
The Sun had a poster up of Queen. And one of their famous songs is, "I want to break free."
That got a round of applause, Audrey.
Yeah.
That got a round of applause.
So it's a bit strange that that should be in the thing. And the Sun says that the inventions go into a trust, but didn't see who the trust was for, but it was in some sort of trust. Could it have been him?
Let me see if I can help you, because you now get to pick your final piece of evidence.
All right.
You've just got 2 pieces of evidence left to choose from, but you'll only see one of them before you make your final accusation. So you can have either the forensics report on the van parked outside the workshop, or you can have the last will and testament of David Cotley.
Well, personally, I'll go for the will. What do you guys want to do?
Let's see what Will has to say.
Will?
Will.
OK, you've chosen to see the will of Mr David Cotley. So David's last will and testament explains that everything will be passed on to his son Graham in the event of his death.
But he didn't want it. He said very clearly, Dad knew that I didn't want it.
Yeah.
So would he then give himself it by killing his dad?
Yeah.
If
Now,
he
the
didn't want that
patent,
life.
there's also the new patent as well that was going to be pending. So
Patent number. That is the patent that he's getting.
Does anyone remember the old patent number?
Graham did say that his father wouldn't have left him that, and it was going to a trust. That was a porky pie.
Well, Armchair detectives, this is the big moment. You've seen most of the evidence. You've met all of the suspects. You're about to make your final accusation for the chance of winning that golden magnifying glass trophy. So, I need you to write down who you're accusing now. And you at home, who are you going to choose? Have you been paying attention? Who wears silk scarves? Who owns the handkerchief? These and many more questions will never be answered. No, they'll be answered in just a minute. Time's up. Please put your pads and pencils down, Armchair detectives. Eloise, who have you accused?
Simon Senior.
Simon Senior, and why?
Just going back to his interview, I feel like he was very sketchy and he seems quite close to Heather to have all the secret information, and his son went and done all the digging.
OK. Dipak, who have you accused?
I've gone with Graham.
Cotley.
That's
the
correct.
son, the victim's son.
son.
And why?
The very loose thread that I'm not convinced he wasn't aware of the will.
Audrey.
I changed my mind to young Graham because the fact that he said he wasn't going to inherit anything, which he clearly was.
Before Knight and Slater tell us who done it, there's one piece of evidence you haven't seen yet. Would it have made a difference? Would you have changed your minds? Let's take a look. What you didn't look at was the forensic report on the van. It's a white van that was parked outside the workshop. The vehicle has a dent on the left side. The front seat is forward and the keys have been left in the ignition. Fingerprint matches David Cotley, Heather Cookham and workers from the factory. Silk fibres were found throughout. So would that have changed your mind at all?
No.
No.
The silk fibres throughout the interior could have come from anybody at any time.
OK, what really happened in today's story? Patently murder. Who killed David Cotley? Let's find out who done it.
The pipe could only have been pulled out by Heather, not inserted, as there were no fingerprints found near the exhaust. With David dead, Heather loses out on a job.
Simon Delaney Jr. and Senior both have other business interests. According to the Inland Revenue, they're doing very well indeed. Graham is the one who stands to gain most from his father's death.
Graham has a Category A driving licence. Can he drive a van? So.
Whereas Tony and June Harrow, on the other hand, I think we should bring them in.
For the record, present are D.I. Knight and D.C. Slater interviewing June Harrow.
Mrs. Harrow, thank you for coming in today.
No problem.
Where were you on the night of David Cotley's murder?
I played bridge at my club.
Did you drive there?
I always do.
You're very smart, aren't you?
A long time since I've been called that.
Well, you left university with a double first in engineering. Your husband told us that the idea for David's electrical coil came from you.
Yes, Not something David remembered.
Must have been difficult. So talented but overlooked because of your gender.
I wasn't the only one.
And then, to add insult to injury, David decided to let the patent lapse.
It was outrageous.
Being overlooked is one thing, but losing money on something that was yours to begin with must have been the final insult.
I don't know what you mean.
You and your husband were struggling financially. Tony tried to persuade David to keep the patent active to keep money coming in.
Tony knew that David was meeting Simon's junior and senior, so therefore he would be in the workshop late.
So you drove to the workshop, you knew where the van keys were kept. David didn't hear you because he was listening to music.
Nor did he notice the fumes from the van. See, you knew David had lost his sense of smell after a sinus infection. Once the pipe was in place, you parked the van in such a way as to block the workshop door. You then got into your own car and drove to Bridge Club.
It's quite a story.
David started to feel unwell. He noticed the pipe under the door. He tried to get out, but he couldn't because the van was in the way. The window wouldn't open. You knew that too. By the time Heather called the ambulance, it was too late. The poison was already in his system.
Something you failed to realise was that David had enough time to shred the blueprints. We found an envelope with quotes from Queen songs, no name, but both Graham and David were fans.
You have no proof.
You are the only one of the petrol heads who can drive.
Sorry we're late. Bus delays.
Also, you're what, 5'5"? We noticed the driver's seat in the van was pushed quite far forward. Our forensic team have just finished tests on the seat adjuster. It had silk fibres on it. The same silk fibres that they found on the pipe. And I'm willing to bet my life that they match your scarf. You had motive, means, and opportunity.
It was my idea! Mine! He should have remembered where it came from. And he shouldn't have let the patent lapse. He deserved to die.
June Harrow, I'm arresting you for the murder of David Cotley.
You picked up on all of the clues. You just didn't put it together. And at one point, June Harrow was identified by you. And you changed your mind. Does it all make sense now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I said hindsight, I wanted to go back to her.
Yeah.
Because I knew category A licence, but it's all too late. My life's over.
No, because the joy of Armchair Detectives is you get another chance.
Yeah.
In fact, don't worry. Never mind, guys. You failed to pick today's killer. Better luck next time. Did any of you pick the killer? Oh, well, you'll get your chance as well. That's all from Armchair Detectives. Come back tomorrow where we find Knight and Slater on a cliff edge. And remember, no one gets away with murder in Mortcliffe. Goodbye. Bye.